we do a lot of BRRRR deals for our clients. And so we just finished one up. I just made an offer on one the other day for a new client, and unfortunately didn't get it. There was a lot of competition for that one, but it was just a deal on the MLS, and looking at the difference between the asking price and what it sold for and the ARV, there was at least maybe $125,000 in equity to be had on that property. And I think that there's tons of opportunity like that in a lot of markets. Yeah, I mean, I would keep my eyes on the market. Networking is huge, obviously. A lot of people are scared to network with real estate agents, but I can tell you, even as a real estate agent, I get so many calls from people who have off-market properties that they don't know what to do with. We do off-market deals all the time, and the only people who see those are the ones that are reaching out to us. Network with real estate agents, network with other people who are doing wholesaling and stuff in your market. And the one thing that a lot of people don't do is watching the MLS. I see more deals on the MLS that are great deals than I see from wholesalers or off market by far. The only difference is that those, when they're on the MLS, they come and go in 4 hours. And so just recognizing a deal and being willing to jump when you see it, but paying attention to the MLS is huge. I mean, 90% of the properties are sold on the MLS. Those are not all bad deals. There's some great deals that happen there.
Yeah. What kind of cash flow do you see in those deals in today's market at these interest rates, right? So everybody's talking about high interest rate, but what people are forgetting is interest rate can only go down for you, meaning you don't have to refinance it if it's going up, but you can refinance it if it goes down, assuming that you are locked in for a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah, and I mean, as a real estate agent, I would be stepping out of line if I told somebody that rates are going down and the strategy you should use is like pay too much now and then just plan on refinancing later. So I think that you're right, and I agree with that, but that's not necessarily the approach that we take.
Well, no, what I was trying to say with that was, even if you have whatever cash flow that you have today, the opportunity in the sense is, you have this cash flow. So if you have this cash flow, it hopefully, if everything is, the rent and the expenses kind of like the typical assumptions that you take, even if the interest rates don't go down, you're still locked in for this little cash flow. But if the interest rates go down, the opportunity for a higher cash flow is there.
So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm doing that myself. And so I totally agree with you. To be honest with you, our market is an appreciating market, and it's growing like crazy. Our property values in the Boise metro area have about tripled in the last 7 years. So because of that, there's a lot of competition for properties, and prices are relatively high, and rents have not caught up with that. Rents have gone up significantly, but the ratio, it makes it tough to cash flow is what I'm getting at, is that a lot of properties, it's tough to cash flow. And so part of what we do is we also sit down with our clients and we talk a lot about tax strategies. And we have some CPAs that we work with. We refer them to CPAs because that's not what we do. We're not professionals, but we want to give them some ideas and then send them off to a professional who can advise them. And so we work with a lot of people that we help figure out tax strategies where maybe the cash flow of the property isn't great, but there are ways that they can offset taxes that they're paying in other areas by buying a property here and using a specific strategy. So we do quite a bit of that. And then working with a lot of people to figure out house hacks. We work with a lot of people to buy properties that we can easily divide into duplexes, and they live in one side and have tenants in the other side, and then they live there for a year, 18 months, and we repeat that process. We do a lot of like live-in BRRRRs for people where they'll buy a house as their primary and it needs a lot of help, and we'll help them over the course of a year, either sending our contractors out or giving them advice on how to, like what improvements to make and building up a little bit of equity. And then they can move out and hopefully have 15 to 25% equity in that first year and repeat that process, and then kind of start focusing on some of those tax strategies too. And so you asked about cash flow, and to be honest with you, finding positive cash flow here is really tough. But if you get creative, there's a lot of other ways to make money in real estate through building equity and offsetting your tax burden in other places. And in a market like ours, the appreciation is going to build up that equity for you too. And so if you're seeing 8% equity build up on a $400,000 property every year, you're going to double that property value over the course of 7 or 8 years. And so that can change people's lives in a major way.
So a typical deal is what, $400,000, like a 3-2?
Yeah, the median single family price in our town right now is about $530,000, but we don't do a lot of those deals for investors. Most of the deals we do is like you're talking about, 3.2, somewhere in the 350 to maybe $400,000 range that needs a little bit of love. And we do a lot of those types of deals.
So, what's the driving factor behind Boise? So, what's happening? So, you mentioned in the last 70 years, the prices have tripled.
Mm-hmm.
And in next 70 years, you are anticipating maybe doubling of the prices, right? So, what's driving that?
It'll sound cheesy, but it's a great place to live, to be honest with you. It's clean. There's no crime. There's some really great established businesses here, and so there's a market for jobs, and there's a need for people to come here and work. Honestly, the biggest driving factor is on the West Coast. All of the states that we butt up against on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, and California. And I'm not here to talk politics, so I'm going to skirt like the specifics, but those are very liberal states and they are not landlord friendly. And it makes investing in real estate really hard there. And it makes starting businesses really difficult. Taxes are really high in those states, all that kind of stuff. Idaho, our state legislature prides itself on, they call themselves the most conservative state in the nation. And so, politics and specifics aside, they've created an atmosphere here where it's very landlord friendly. It's very business friendly. It's inexpensive to start a business and to run a business here. Our state has gone as far over the last few years. They've passed laws. For instance, in Idaho, it's illegal for an HOA to dictate property use. So an HOA cannot tell you can't have a short-term rental anywhere in the state of Idaho. They can't tell you can't have a long-term rental. It's illegal. They passed a law last year that making rent controls and fee regulation for investment properties illegal. And so cities, HOAs, and counties are not allowed to institute any type of rent controls, property use regulations, or fee regulations for landlords. And so it's really a great place to invest in real estate. And the price you pay for that kind of stability is that, it's a little bit more expensive up front, but property values are rising pretty regularly. The tenant base is really high quality. There are no, I was talking earlier about like C and D kind of quality properties. I wouldn't say there's anywhere in our valley that's a D area. There's a couple little pockets that I might consider C areas, but almost across the board, it's very middle class. There are nice, clean, single family homes and a park 2 blocks away from almost every place in this valley. It's just a nice, clean place to live. There's great food. I could talk forever. And you've seen, I probably have, but yeah, it's just a good
No,
place.
this is good because mostly what you hear is cities and HOAs kind of regulating what you can or cannot do, or mostly what you cannot do. So it's really limited to what you can do. So this is interesting where Idaho is setting itself apart, saying you can do whatever you want to do. HOA, you cannot help.
It's funny. There's this kind of pushback here with people from California moving here. There's a lot of Californians that are moving here, which, being in real estate, I think it's great. And ironically, I think most states think that there's a bunch of Californians moving there. but I had a client that bought, or who was looking at buying a big parcel of land that's kind of out in the country here, in a very sparsely populated county, and he wanted to divide it up and build a few like 5-acre cabins, a few cabins and have 5-acre lots. And he asked me if I would call planning and zoning for the county and ask if that was possible. And so I called planning and zoning, and that county had one employee in planning and zoning. It was just one lady. I called her and had asked her a few questions, and she stopped me and she said, "Is the person you're talking to a Californian that's moving here?" And I said, "Yeah." And I thought she was going to say something about not wanting more Californians to move here. And I actually got a kick out of it. And she said, "You tell that man from California that if he comes to Idaho, he can do whatever the hell he wants with his land." And I got a kick out of that. But that's kind of the vibe here. If you buy property, the state has made it very clear you can do whatever you want with your property. I mean, obviously there are some exceptions, but if you buy property and you want to rent it out and use it as an investment, you can do whatever you want with that property. And the state and the city are not going to intervene in any